bear cub spinning in a charity. Dunk tank wheel and took it to hospital. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun painted the small town of Willowbrook in golden hues as families began gathering at the annual charity fair. The air buzzed with excitement, and the sweet aroma of fresh cotton candy mixed with the smoky scent of grilled corn. Colorful banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, and the sound of children's laughter echoed across the grassy field where dozens of booths had been set up overnight. Maya Chen pushed her stroller slowly through the crowd, her 18-month-old daughter Lily sitting contentedly inside, wide brown eyes taking in all the sights and sounds around her. The little girl's chubby hands reached out toward the colorful balloons floating past, her soft babbling barely audible over the cheerful chaos of the fair. "Look at all these people, sweetheart," Maya whispered to Lily, adjusting the small pink hat on her daughter's head. "Your first charity fair. Mama used to come here when she was little, too." Nearby, a group of teenagers had gathered around the dunk tank wheel, their voices growing louder with each spin. The wheel, painted bright red and blue, stood about 6 feet tall with the seat positioned over a tank of water. People were taking turns spinning the wheel for a $1 donation, trying to land on the lucky number that would send whoever was sitting on the seat plunging into the cold water below. "Come on, just one more $1," shouted 17-year-old Jake Morrison, his sandy hair catching the sunlight. "I'm telling you guys, I can hit the target this time." His friends laughed and cheered him on, but their attention was suddenly drawn to something moving at the edge of the fairgrounds. Through the trees that bordered the field, a small brown shape was wandering closer to the festivities. "Dude, is that what I think it is?" whispered Jake's friend Tommy, pointing toward the trees. The small bear cub, no bigger than a medium-sized dog, had been separated from its mother during the night. Hungry and curious, it had followed the scents and sounds that drifted through the forest. Now it stood at the tree line, sniffing the air and taking tentative steps toward the fair. Maya continued pushing Lily's stroller, completely unaware of the drama beginning to unfold just 50 yards away. Lily had started making soft cooing sounds, her tiny fingers grasping at the air as if trying to catch something only she could see. The cub took another step forward, its small black nose twitching as it caught the scent of food. It had been alone for almost 2 days now, and its stomach ached with hunger. The sounds of human voices should have frightened it away, but desperation drove it closer. Jake and his friends had spotted the cub and were now whispering excitedly among themselves. What started as innocent curiosity quickly turned into something far more reckless. "We should tell someone," said Sarah, one of the girls in the group, her voice uncertain. "Are you kidding?" Jake replied, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "When are we ever going to get this close to a real bear again? Look how small it is. It's probably just a baby." The cub continued to approach, drawn by the smell of popcorn and hot dogs. It moved slowly, cautiously, but each step brought it closer to the crowd of people who remained completely unaware of its presence. Lily suddenly let out a small cry, her head turning toward the trees as if she sensed something her mother couldn't. Maya paused, looking down at her daughter with concern. "What is it, baby girl? Do you see something?" Maya followed Lily's gaze but saw nothing unusual among the crowd of fairgoers. The teenagers, however, were already moving toward the cub, their footsteps careful and deliberate. Jake pulled out his phone, ready to record what he was sure would be the most incredible video of his life. "This is going to go viral," he whispered to Tommy. "Nobody's going to believe we got this close to a wild bear. The cub froze as it noticed the approaching humans. Its instincts told it to run, but hunger and exhaustion had weakened its usual fear response. Instead, it stood perfectly still, its small dark eyes watching the teenagers with a mixture of curiosity and growing alarm. What happened next would change everything for everyone at the fair, but most especially for little Lily, who continued to stare in the direction of the trees with an intensity that seemed far beyond her young age. Her small hands gripped the sides of her stroller, and her breathing had become quick and shallow, as if she could sense the danger that was about to unfold. The morning that had started so peacefully was about to take a turn that none of them could have imagined. Jake crept closer to the cub, his phone held high, recording every moment. The small bear had stopped moving and was now sitting on its haunches, tilting its head as it watched the approaching teenagers. Something about its posture seemed almost human-like, as if it was trying to understand what these strange creatures wanted from it. "Oh my God, it's so cute," whispered Emma, another girl in Jake's group. "It looks like a teddy bear." But Tommy noticed something the others didn't. "Guys, where's its mom? Baby bears don't usually travel alone." Jake waved him off, too excited by the opportunity to think clearly. "It's probably just exploring. Bears do that, right?" The cub's stomach growled audibly, and it let out a small whimper that sounded heartbreakingly similar to a human baby's cry. This sound carried across the fairgrounds, and several people turned their heads, trying to locate its source. Maya felt a chill run down her spine as she heard the sound. Lily had gone completely still in her stroller, her brown eyes wide and focused on something beyond the crowd. The baby's usual happy babbling had stopped entirely, replaced by an eerie silence that made Maya's maternal instincts kick into high gear. "Lily? What's wrong, sweetheart?" Maya knelt down beside the stroller, touching her daughter's forehead. The baby's skin was warm, but not feverish. Instead, Lily seemed to be in some kind of trance, her small body rigid with concentration. Then Lily did something she had never done before. She pointed. Her tiny index finger extended toward the trees where the cub sat, and she let out a series of sounds that were unlike any baby talk Maya had ever heard. They were urgent, almost melodic, like she was trying to communicate something important but didn't have the words. "Ma, ma, ma," Lily said, but her voice carried a note of distress that made Maya's heart race. Meanwhile, Jake had gotten within 10 feet of the cub. The animal looked up at him with dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to hold a depth of emotion Jake wasn't prepared for. For a moment, boy and bear simply stared at each other, and Jake felt something shift inside his chest. This wasn't just some wild animal he could use for entertainment. This was a living creature that was clearly lost, frightened, and desperately hungry. "Jake, maybe we should back away," Sarah said softly. "This doesn't feel right." But Jake's friends were egging him on from behind. "Get closer. Touch it. This is so cool." The cub stood up slowly, its legs shaking slightly from weakness. It took a tentative step toward Jake, and that's when Jake made his first mistake. Instead of backing away, he reached out his hand, trying to coax the animal closer. "Here, little guy, it's okay. We're not going to hurt you." The cub, desperate for any sign of kindness, took another step forward. It was at this moment that Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman running the nearby ring toss game, spotted the group of teenagers clustered near the trees. "What are those kids doing over there?" she muttered to herself, squinting through her thick glasses. When she saw the small brown shape moving among them, her blood ran cold. "Bear!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. "There's a bear!" The word spread through the crowd like wildfire. Within seconds, people were running in all directions, screaming and grabbing their children. The peaceful morning atmosphere shattered into chaos as families scrambled to get away from what they perceived as mortal danger. But the reaction of the crowd had an unexpected effect on both the teenagers and the cub. The cub, terrified by the sudden noise and movement, panicked. Instead of running back toward the safety of the trees, it bolted in the opposite direction, straight toward the heart of the fair. Jake and his friends found themselves caught between the fleeing crowd and the panicked animal. In the confusion, Jake grabbed Tommy's arm. "We have to catch it before it hurts someone." This was Jake's second mistake, and it would prove to be far more costly than the first. The cub ran blindly through the fairgrounds, knocking over a small table of baked goods and sending pies flying in all directions. Its panic made it clumsy, and its weak condition made it stumble as it tried to navigate around the various obstacles in its path. Maya heard the screams and felt the crowd surge around her. She quickly lifted Lily from the stroller, holding her daughter close to her chest as people pushed past them. But instead of running like everyone else, Maya found herself looking for the source of the commotion. "What's happening?" she called out to a man running past her. "Bear! There's a bear loose in the fair!" he shouted without stopping. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, but when she looked down at Lily, she was shocked by what she saw. Her daughter wasn't crying or showing any signs of fear. Instead, Lily was reaching toward the direction of the chaos, her small hands opening and closing as if she was trying to grab something just out of reach. The cub, exhausted and terrified, had run directly toward the dunk tank area. The teenagers chased after it, shouting instructions to each other, but their pursuit only made the animal more frantic. The cub looked around desperately for an escape route and saw what appeared to be a small shelter near the dunk tank wheel. What the cub didn't realize was that this shelter was actually the base of the dunk tank mechanism. In its panic, it scrambled up onto the platform, seeking higher ground where it might feel safer. Jake arrived just as the cub reached the top of the platform. The wheel was still spinning slowly from the last customer, and the seat above the water tank swayed gently in the breeze. "We've got it cornered now," Jake panted to his friends. "Someone call animal control." But Tommy had a different idea, one that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Wait," he said, pointing to the spinning wheel. "Look where it ended up. What if we could get it to sit on the seat? Can you imagine the video we'd get?" Sarah stared at him in horror. "Tommy, that's insane. We can't put a bear on the dunk tank seat." "It's just a baby bear," Tommy argued. "And the water's not that deep. It would be like giving it a bath." The cub, meanwhile, had found itself trapped on the platform with nowhere to go. Below, a crowd was beginning to gather again, but this time they kept their distance. Some people had their phones out, recording the scene, while others called for help. Jake looked at the cub, then at the spinning wheel, then back at his friends. The adrenaline was pumping through his veins, and the peer pressure was overwhelming. He knew it was wrong, but the temptation to do something that no one else had ever done before was too strong to resist. "Just for a few seconds," he said quietly. "Just long enough to get it on video. Then we'll let it go." This decision would change everything, not just for Jake and his friends, but for Maya, for little Lily, and most of all, for the small, frightened cub that had simply been looking for something to eat and a safe place to rest. As Jake climbed up onto the platform, the cub backed away from him, its eyes wide with terror. It had nowhere left to run, and its weak body was beginning to shake from exhaustion and fear. Lily, still in her mother's arms 50 yards away, suddenly let out a cry that was unlike anything Maya had ever heard from her daughter. It was a sound of pure anguish, as if the baby somehow understood that something terrible was about to happen to a creature she had never even seen clearly. The sound carried across the fairgrounds, piercing through the noise of the crowd and reaching the ears of everyone present. For a moment, even Jake hesitated, looking around to see where such a heartbreaking sound had come from. But the hesitation lasted only a moment. With his friends cheering him on and his phone recording everything, Jake reached out toward the terrified cub, ready to commit an act that would haunt him forever. The cub backed against the edge of the platform, its small paws scrambling for purchase on the slippery metal surface. Jake's hand was inches away when something unexpected happened. A voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Stop!" Everyone turned to see Dr. Elena Rodriguez pushing through the crowd. She was a veterinarian who had been volunteering at the pet adoption booth when she heard the commotion. Her long black hair was tied back in a ponytail, and her face was flushed from running, but her voice carried the authority of someone who had spent years working with frightened animals. "Don't you dare touch that animal," she commanded, her eyes fixed on Jake. "Can't you see it's terrified?" Jake's hand froze in midair. The cub was pressed against the far corner of the platform now, its breathing rapid and shallow. Small whimpering sounds escaped from its throat, sounds that reminded everyone present that this was just a baby, separated from its mother and lost in a world it didn't understand. "It's just a bear," Tommy called out from below. "We're not hurting it." Dr. Rodriguez's eyes flashed with anger. "Just a bear? That's a 6-month-old cub that's probably been without food for days. Look at it. It's dehydrated, exhausted, and absolutely terrified. One wrong move and it could fall into that tank and drown." Maya, still holding Lily tightly, had worked her way closer to the scene. Her daughter had gone quiet again, but Maya could feel the tension in the baby's small body. Lily's eyes remained fixed on the cub, and occasionally she would make soft sounds that seemed almost like she was trying to comfort the animal from a distance. "Mama," Lily whispered, so quietly that only Maya could hear. Then, more urgently, "Mama, Mama, Mama." "I know, baby," Maya whispered back, though she wasn't sure what her daughter was trying to tell her. "I see it too." On the platform, Jake was still frozen, his hand extended toward the cub. Dr. Rodriguez began climbing up slowly, her movements careful and deliberate. "I'm going to approach very slowly," she called down to the crowd. "Everyone needs to be quiet. Any sudden noise could cause it to panic even more." But as she climbed, something else was happening that no one had noticed. Lily had begun to squirm in her mother's arms, and her soft vocalizations were becoming more insistent. The sounds she was making weren't random baby babble anymore. They had a rhythm, a pattern, almost like she was trying to sing. The cub's ears perked up. Through all the human voices and chaos, it seemed to hear something that spoke to it on a deeper level. Its head turned toward the sound, and for the first time since the panic began, its breathing started to slow. Dr. Rodriguez noticed the change immediately. "What is that sound?" she asked, pausing on the platform. Maya looked down at Lily in amazement. Her daughter was making a low, melodic humming sound, punctuated by soft clicking noises with her tongue. It was unlike anything Maya had ever heard from any baby, and somehow, impossibly, it seemed to be calming the cub. I don't know," Maya said honestly. "She's never done anything like this before." Jake, still recording with his phone, whispered to Tommy, "Are you getting this? This is insane." The cub took a tentative step toward the edge of the platform, in the direction of Lily's sounds. Dr. Rodriguez held perfectly still, not wanting to break whatever spell was being woven between the baby and the animal. "Everyone stay very quiet," she whispered to the crowd. "Something incredible is happening here." Lily's humming grew slightly louder, and she began to rock gently in her mother's arms. The cub responded by sitting down on the platform, its posture relaxing for the first time since the ordeal began. Its dark eyes remained focused on the baby, as if it could see her even through the crowd of people. "This is impossible, Doctor," Rodriguez murmured. "I've never seen anything like this in 20 years of veterinary practice." But the moment of peace was shattered when Jake's phone slipped from his sweaty hands. It clattered loudly on the metal platform, and the cub jumped backward in fright. This time, there was nowhere to go. The animal's hind paws slipped off the edge of the platform, and it fell with a splash into the dunk tank below. The water wasn't deep enough to drown in, but it was deep enough to panic a small, exhausted cub that had no experience with swimming. The animal thrashed wildly, its head going under and then popping back up as it struggled to find something solid to hold on to. "No!" Dr. Rodriguez shouted, diving into the tank without hesitation. The crowd gasped as she surfaced, her veterinary coat soaked and clinging to her body. She reached for the cub, but the animal was too panicked to let her help. Every time she got close, it would thrash away from her, going under the water again. Maya felt Lily stiffen in her arms. The baby let out a cry of distress that was so piercing, so full of anguish, that several people in the crowd began to cry themselves. It was as if Lily could feel every bit of the cub's terror and pain. "I have to help," Maya heard herself saying. She didn't know where the words came from, but suddenly she was moving toward the tank, Lily still in her arms. "Maya, no!" called out her sister Rachel, who had just arrived at the fair and had been looking for them. "It's too dangerous." But Maya wasn't listening. Something deeper than logic was driving her forward. Lily had gone quiet again, but her small body was trembling with what Maya could only describe as urgency. Dr. Rodriguez was still trying to corner the cub in the tank, but the animal was growing weaker with each passing second. Its movements were becoming more erratic, and twice its head had gone under for several seconds before it managed to surface again. "It's drowning," someone in the crowd whispered. "Where's the fire department?" Someone called 911, right? But help was still minutes away, and the cub was running out of strength. Dr. Rodriguez made another grab for the animal, and this time she managed to get her hands around its middle. But the cub, in its panic, bit down on her forearm, its small teeth piercing through her wet coat and into her skin. "Ah!" she cried out, instinctively letting go. Blood began to seep through the torn fabric of her sleeve. The cub went under again, and this time it stayed down longer than before. When it surfaced, its movements were sluggish, and its eyes were beginning to roll back in its head. That's when Lily did something that no one could have predicted, something that would be talked about in Willowbrook for generations to come. The 18-month-old baby somehow twisted herself out of her mother's arms. Before Maya could react, Lily had slipped from her grasp and was toddling as fast as her small legs could carry her toward the dunk tank. "Lily!" Maya screamed, lunging after her daughter. But Lily was surprisingly quick for such a small child. She reached the edge of the tank just as the cub went under for what might have been the last time. Without any hesitation, without any fear, Lily plunged her tiny hands into the water. The crowd fell completely silent. Even Dr. Rodriguez stopped moving, transfixed by what she was witnessing. Lily's small hands found the cub's fur under the water. The moment she touched the animal, something extraordinary happened. The cub stopped thrashing. Its body went limp, not from drowning, but from an inexplicable sense of calm that seemed to flow from the baby's touch. Lily began making those strange, melodic sounds again, but this time they were different. They were deeper, more complex, and they seemed to resonate not just in the air, but in everyone's chest, as if the sounds were coming from somewhere much older and wiser than an 18-month-old child. The cub's eyes opened underwater. Instead of panic, there was recognition in them, as if it somehow knew this small human was there to help. With Lily's hands guiding it, the cub surfaced gently, its breathing steady for the first time since falling into the tank. Dr. Rodriguez stared in amazement as Lily, barely able to walk steadily on land, somehow managed to help guide the waterlogged cub to the edge of the tank where it could climb out. The baby's movements were sure and confident, as if she had done this 100 times before. "How is this possible?" someone in the crowd whispered. Maya reached the tank just as Lily was helping the cub out of the water. Her daughter's clothes were soaked, her dark hair was dripping, but her face was serene, almost glowing with an inner peace that Maya had never seen before. The cub, now safe on solid ground, shook itself off and then did something that made everyone gasp. It walked directly to Lily and gently nuzzled against her small body, making soft purring sounds like a contented house cat. Lily giggled and wrapped her tiny arms around the cub's neck. The two of them sat there on the wet ground, a baby and a bear cub, both soaking wet, both completely at peace, while a crowd of adults stared in wonder at something they couldn't begin to understand. Dr. Rodriguez climbed out of the tank, her injured arm forgotten for the moment. "In all my years," she said softly, "I've never seen anything like this. It's like they're communicating on some level that we can't even perceive." Jake had retrieved his phone and was still recording, but the triumphant excitement he had felt earlier was gone. Watching Lily risk her own safety to save the cub had made him realize how selfish and cruel his own actions had been. Tears ran down his cheeks as he watched the baby gently stroke the cub's wet fur. "We almost killed it," he whispered to Tommy. "We almost killed this innocent animal for a stupid video." Tommy nodded, unable to speak. The contrast between their reckless cruelty and Lily's selfless compassion was too stark to ignore. But the story was far from over. As Lily and the cub sat together, something else was happening that would soon change everything once again. In the distance, beyond the tree line where the cub had first appeared, a much larger shadow was moving through the forest. The mother bear had caught her cub's scent on the wind, mixed with the unfamiliar smells of humans and fear. She was coming, and she was not happy. Maya, kneeling beside Lily and the cub, suddenly felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Every maternal instinct she possessed was screaming that danger was approaching, even though she couldn't yet see what it was. Lily looked up at her mother and smiled, but there was something in the baby's eyes that made Maya's blood run cold. It was a look of knowledge, of understanding, something that Maya couldn't grasp. "Mama," Lily said clearly, pointing toward the trees, "Big Mama coming." Maya's heart stopped. Her 18-month-old daughter had never spoken such a clear, complete sentence before. The words hung in the air like a prophecy, and everyone who heard them felt a chill run down their spine. Dr. Rodriguez, still dripping from the tank, immediately understood the implications. "Everyone needs to move back," she said urgently. "If there's a mother bear in the area, she's going to be looking for her cub." But even as she spoke, they could all hear it. A low, rumbling sound coming from the forest, like distant thunder. The sound of something large moving through the underbrush, breaking branches and crushing leaves beneath heavy paws. The crowd began to murmur nervously, some people starting to back away, but many others seemed frozen in place, mesmerized by the sight of Lily still sitting peacefully with the cub. The baby showed no fear, continuing to stroke the small bear's damp fur while humming softly. Jake's hands were shaking as he held his phone. Part of him wanted to run, but he couldn't tear himself away from what was happening. "Should we call the police?" he whispered to Tommy. "I think someone already did," Tommy replied, pointing to where several people were on their phones, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. Maya knelt down beside Lily, her voice gentle but firm. "Sweetheart, we need to move away from the little bear now. Its mommy is coming, and she might be scared." But Lily shook her head, her small arms tightening around the cub. "No, Mama," Little Bear said. "Little Bear needs help." As if understanding her words, the cub nuzzled closer to Lily, making small whimpering sounds. Dr. Rodriguez noticed that the animal was still shivering, not just from the cold water, but from exhaustion and hunger. "She's right, Doctor," Rodriguez said quietly. "This cub is in bad shape. It's been separated from its mother for days, maybe longer. It's severely dehydrated and probably hasn't eaten anything substantial in that time." The rumbling from the forest was getting closer now, and they could hear the distinct sound of a large animal crashing through the trees. The mother bear was making no attempt at stealth. Her desperation to find her cub had overridden her natural caution around humans. "How long do we have?" Maya asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "Not long, Doctor," Rodriguez replied. "Maybe a couple of minutes." That's when something unexpected happened. Lily stood up, her small hand still resting on the cub's head, and began walking toward the forest. Her steps were sure and purposeful, completely unlike the uncertain toddle of a typical 18-month-old. "Lily, no!" Maya cried, rushing after her daughter. But Lily turned and looked at her mother with eyes that seemed far older than her age. "It's okay, Mama. Big Mama not angry with me." The words sent chills through everyone who heard them. How could a baby, barely out of diapers, speak with such clarity and confidence about something she had no way of understanding? Dr. Rodriguez grabbed Maya's arm. "Wait," she said. "Let's see what happens. There's something extraordinary going on here, something I've never witnessed in all my years working with animals." The cub, despite its weakened state, got to its feet and began following Lily toward the trees. Its movements were unsteady, but it seemed determined to stay close to the strange little human who had saved its life. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the baby and the bear cub walked together toward the edge of the fairgrounds. The rumbling sounds from the forest had stopped, replaced by a different sound altogether. Heavy breathing, punctuated by soft huffing noises that every wildlife expert would recognize as a mother bear calling for her young. "She's close," Dr. Rodriguez whispered. "Very close." Jake lowered his phone, suddenly realizing that what he was witnessing was far more important than any video he could post online. This was something sacred, something that shouldn't be exploited for entertainment. As they reached the edge of the clearing, Lily stopped. She looked back at her mother with a smile that was both innocent and knowing. "Don't be scared, Mama. Everything going to be okay." Then, from the shadows between the trees, she emerged. The mother bear was massive, easily 3 times the size of an adult human. Her dark brown fur rippled with muscle, and her eyes held the fierce intelligence and protective fury that only a mother separated from her child could possess. She paused at the tree line, her massive head swiveling as she took in the scene before her. The crowd collectively held its breath. Many people had pulled out their phones, but they held them with trembling hands, too terrified to move or speak. The mother bear's gaze swept over the humans, assessing the threat they might pose. Her eyes lingered on Jake and his friends, and they could see the anger there, as if she somehow knew they had been responsible for her cub's distress. But then her eyes found Lily. What happened next would be debated and discussed for years to come. The mother bear looked at the tiny human child standing protectively beside her cub, and something in her expression changed. The fury melted away, replaced by what could only be described as recognition. Lily took a step forward, her small hand still resting on the cub's head. Big Mama, she said softly. Little Bear was lost. Little Bear was hungry. I helped. The mother bear tilted her massive head, as if she was actually listening to the baby's words. Then, incredibly, she took a step forward herself. Dr. Rodriguez whispered to Maya, "This is impossible. Wild bears don't behave this way around humans, especially mothers with cubs. There should be aggression, territorial behavior. Instead, she's listening to my daughter." Maya finished, her voice filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. The mother bear continued to approach, her movements slow and deliberate. When she was about 10 feet away from Lily and the cub, she stopped and sat back on her haunches, bringing her massive frame down to a less intimidating height. The cub, seeing its mother for the first time in days, let out a series of excited chirping sounds and started to run toward her. But after just a few steps, its weak legs gave out, and it collapsed onto the grass. The mother bear's distress was immediate and visible. She let out a low moan that sounded heartbreakingly like a human mother's cry of anguish. Lily walked over to the fallen cub and knelt beside it. She placed her small hands on its fur and began making those strange melodic sounds again. The cub's breathing, which had become labored, started to steady. "The cub is severely dehydrated," Dr. Rodriguez called out to the mother bear, as if the animal could understand her medical assessment. "It needs immediate veterinary care, or it's not going to survive." The mother bear looked at Dr. Rodriguez, then back at Lily, then at her weakened cub. For a moment, that stretched like eternity. Nobody moved. Then Lily stood up and walked directly toward the mother bear. "Lily!" Maya screamed, starting to run toward her daughter. But the mother bear held up one massive paw, and Maya stopped as if she had hit an invisible wall. The gesture was unmistakably a signal to wait, to trust. Lily walked right up to the enormous animal and placed her tiny hand on the bear's massive paw. The contrast was stunning, the smallest human hand touching the largest bear paw, with absolute trust on both sides. "Little Bear needs doctor," Lily said clearly, looking up into the mother bear's dark eyes. "Nice doctor lady help Little Bear get better." What happened next defied everything anyone thought they knew about wild animal behavior. The mother bear looked at Dr. Rodriguez, then back at Lily, then nodded her massive head. She actually nodded, as if she understood and was giving her permission. Dr. Rodriguez didn't waste a second. She approached the collapsed cub slowly, her hands visible and her movements careful. The mother bear watched her every move, but didn't interfere as the veterinarian began her examination. "Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and exhaustion," Dr. Rodriguez announced. "This little one needs IV fluids and immediate medical attention. We need to get it to the animal hospital right away." She looked up at the mother bear. "I need to take your baby to help it get better. Do you understand?" The mother bear looked at Dr. Rodriguez, then at Lily, who nodded encouragingly. "Dr. Lady is good," Lily said to the massive bear. "She help Little Bear make strong again." The mother bear walked over to her cub and gently nuzzled it, making soft rumbling sounds that everyone recognized as words of comfort and love. Then she looked back at Dr. Rodriguez and stepped aside. The crowd watched in amazement as Dr. Rodriguez carefully lifted the unconscious cub. The mother bear could have easily stopped her, could have attacked the human who was taking her baby. Instead, she followed closely as Dr. Rodriguez carried the cub toward the parking area where her veterinary van was parked. But as they walked, the mother bear kept looking back at Lily, as if she was trying to memorize the face of the small human who had saved her child. Maya finally found her voice. "Lily, come here, sweetheart. Come to Mama." Lily walked back to her mother, but her eyes remained on the mother bear. As Maya lifted her daughter into her arms, Lily waved at the massive animal. "Bye-bye, Big Mama. See you soon." The mother bear paused at the edge of the parking lot and looked back one more time. Then she let out what sounded unmistakably like a call of gratitude before disappearing into the forest. Jake and his friends had witnessed the entire exchange in stunned silence. The video Jake had started recording for entertainment had become something profound, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the relationship between humans and wild animals. "We need to delete this," Jake said suddenly. Tommy looked at him in surprise. "Are you crazy? This video could get millions of views." "That's exactly why we need to delete it," Jake replied, his voice firm. "This isn't entertainment. This is sacred. What we saw here today, what that little girl did, it's not meant to be turned into some viral video for people to gawk at." Sarah nodded in agreement. Jake's right. Some things are too important to exploit. As Dr. Rodriguez loaded the unconscious cub into her van, she called out to Maya. "I'm taking it to the emergency animal hospital. The next few hours will be critical." "Will it survive?" Maya asked, still holding Lily tightly. "I don't know, Doctor," Rodriguez replied honestly. "But if it does, it will be because of what your daughter did today. I've never seen anything like the connection she formed with that animal. It was like they were communicating on a level that transcended species." As the van drove away, Lily rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "Little Bear going to be okay, Mama," she said sleepily. "Little Bear strong now." Maya looked down at her daughter, this child who had just accomplished something that seemed impossible. "How did you know what to do, sweetheart? How did you know the little bear needed help?" Lily's answer was simple, spoken with the matter-of-fact certainty that only small children possess. "Little Bear told me, Mama. Little Bear was crying inside, so I helped." As the crowd began to disperse, people talking in hushed, amazed tones about what they had witnessed, Maya realized that their quiet morning at the charity fair had become something that would change their lives forever. But even more changes were coming. As they walked back toward their car, Maya noticed a man in a dark suit standing near the edge of the fairgrounds, watching them intently. He wasn't part of the crowd that had witnessed the bear incident. He had arrived separately, and there was something about his presence that made Maya's protective instincts flare. The man approached them as they reached their car. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I'm Agent Marcus Webb from the Department of Wildlife Protection. I received reports about what happened here today, and I need to speak with you about your daughter." Maya instinctively held Lily closer. "What about my daughter?" Agent Webb glanced around, making sure no one else was listening. "Mrs. Chen, what your daughter did today. It's not normal. In fact, it's unprecedented. We need to understand how a human child was able to communicate with wild bears in such a direct way." "She's just a baby," Maya said defensively. "She was trying to help a hurt animal." "I understand your protective instincts," Agent Webb said calmly. "But this incident raises questions that go beyond normal animal behavior. Questions that could have significant implications for wildlife conservation and human-animal relationships." Lily, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, suddenly looked up at Agent Webb with those same knowing eyes that had unsettled Maya earlier. "Man in dark clothes wants to study me," Lily said clearly. But Lily not laboratory mouse. Lily just help animals when they sad. Agent Webb's eyes widened. The child's vocabulary and perception were far beyond what should be possible for an 18-month-old. "Mrs. Chen," he said slowly, "I think we need to have a much longer conversation about your daughter's abilities." Maya's grip tightened on Lily protectively. "I'm not going anywhere with you. My daughter is perfectly normal." Agent Webb reached into his jacket pocket, and Maya tensed, but he only pulled out a business card. "I understand your concern, Mrs. Chen, but what happened here today has been recorded by multiple witnesses. Your daughter demonstrated abilities that we've never documented in any human being before." "Mama's scared," Lily said softly, patting her mother's chest with her small hand. Dark suit man, not bad, just confused. Agent Webb stared at the child. "Lily, how do you know I'm confused?" Lily looked at him with those impossibly wise eyes. "You think Lily's special, but Lily just listen better than other people. Animals always talking, but grown-ups forget how to hear." The simplicity of her explanation somehow made it even more unsettling. Agent Webb pulled out a small recording device and held it up. "Mrs. Chen, would you mind if I recorded our conversation? This could be important for scientific research." "Absolutely not," Maya said firmly. "We're leaving." But as Maya turned to put Lily in her car seat, her daughter spoke again. "Recording Man wants to help animals too, just like Dr. Lady, but Recording Man's scared of what he doesn't understand." Agent Webb lowered the recording device, his expression thoughtful. "Lily, you're right. I am scared. What you did today challenges everything we think we know about human-animal communication." "Why grown-ups always scared of things that different?" Lily asked, tilting her head. "Different not bad. Different just different." Before Agent Webb could respond, Maya's phone rang. She answered it quickly, hoping to end this uncomfortable conversation. "Maya? This is Dr. Rodriguez." The veterinarian's voice was tense with urgency. "I need you to bring Lily to the animal hospital now." Maya felt her stomach drop. "Why? What's wrong?" "It's the cub. We've got it stabilized on IV fluids, but its condition is more serious than I initially thought. There's something else wrong with it, something I can't identify. But here's the strange part. Every time we try to treat it, it becomes agitated and its vital signs deteriorate. The only time it shows any improvement is when we play a recording of Lily's voice from the fair." Maya looked down at her daughter, who was listening intently to the phone conversation. "You want me to bring an 18-month-old to a veterinary hospital?" "I know how it sounds," Dr. Rodriguez continued, "but this cub is dying, Maya. Whatever connection Lily formed with it earlier, it might be the only thing that can save its life now." Agent Webb had been listening to the conversation, and he stepped forward. "Mrs. Chen, this could be exactly the kind of evidence we need to understand your daughter's abilities, if she can actually help heal this animal." "Lily, help Little Bear," the child said suddenly, reaching toward the phone. Little Bear calling for Lily, Little Bear scared without friend. Maya felt torn between her protective instincts and her daughter's obvious desire to help. The maternal part of her wanted to take Lily home and pretend none of this had ever happened. But looking at her daughter's earnest face, she realized that might not be possible. "Dr. Rodriguez, are you sure it's safe for Lily to be around the cub?" "I'll take every precaution," the veterinarian assured her. "The cub is too weak to pose any physical threat, and I'll be there the entire time. But Maya, if we don't try something soon, this animal is going to die." Lily tugged on her mother's shirt. "Please, Mama, Little Bear needs Lily." Maya looked at Agent Webb, who nodded encouragingly. "I can escort you to the hospital," he offered. "Make sure everything is handled properly." 20 minutes later, they were standing outside the Willowbrook Emergency Animal Hospital. The building was modern and clean, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light. Dr. Rodriguez met them at the entrance, still wearing her damp clothes from the dunk tank incident. "Thank you for coming," she said to Maya. "I have to warn you, the cub's condition has deteriorated since we brought it in. Its breathing is shallow, and its heart rate is erratic." They walked through the hospital corridors, passing examination rooms filled with various animals and their worried owners. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the sounds of barking dogs and meowing cats created an atmosphere of organized chaos. "Here's what I don't understand," Dr. Rodriguez continued as they walked. "All of the cub's symptoms point to severe stress and trauma. But there's something else. It's like the animal is experiencing a form of psychological distress that I've never seen before." They stopped outside a room marked intensive care. Through the window, Maya could see the small bear cub lying on a metal examination table, connected to various tubes and monitors. Its breathing was indeed shallow, and its eyes were closed. "The moment we play recordings of Lily's voice, its vital signs improve," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "But as soon as the recording stops, it goes back into distress." Agent Webb was taking notes in a small notebook. "Have you tried playing recordings of other children's voices?" "Yes, and recordings of the mother bear's vocalizations, too. Nothing works except Lily's voice." Lily had been quietly observing the cub through the window, her small hands pressed against the glass. Suddenly, she began making those same melodic sounds she had made at the fair, but this time they were different, more urgent, more complex. Immediately, the monitors in the room began beeping more rapidly. The cub's eyes opened, and its head turned toward the window where Lily stood. "Incredible," Dr. Rodriguez whispered. "Look at its vital signs. Heart rate is stabilizing. Breathing is deepening." "Little bear, remember Lily," the child said simply. "Little bear, happy now." Dr. Rodriguez looked at Maya. "I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Would you be willing to let Lily go into the room with the cub?" "Absolutely not," Maya said immediately. "It's still a wild animal." "Mama," Lily said, tugging on her mother's sleeve, "little bear not hurt Lily. Little bear love Lily." Agent Webb leaned closer to the window. "Dr. Rodriguez, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish here?" "I want to understand the nature of this connection," the veterinarian replied. "If Lily can actually communicate with this animal on some level we don't understand, it could revolutionize our approach to wildlife rehabilitation." As they talked, none of them noticed that the cub had managed to lift its head and was now watching them through the glass. Its dark eyes were focused intently on Lily, and it was making soft whimpering sounds that seemed almost like it was trying to call to her. "Look," Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to the monitors. "Its distress levels are spiking again. It knows Lily is here, but it can't reach her." Lily pressed her face against the glass and began humming again. The cub responded immediately, trying to get up from the table despite its weakness. "It's going to hurt itself," Dr. Rodriguez said urgently. "The 4 lines could pull out if it keeps struggling like that." That's when Maya made a decision that would change everything. "What safety precautions can you put in place?" Dr. Rodriguez looked surprised. "You're considering it?" "My daughter seems to have some kind of connection with this animal that I don't understand," Maya said slowly. "But I can see that it's suffering, and if Lily can help, we can have a sedative ready if needed," Dr. Rodriguez said quickly. "I'll be in the room the entire time, and we can have security standing by outside." Agent Webb was scribbling furiously in his notebook. "This is unprecedented. We're potentially witnessing the first documented case of cross-species telepathic communication." "Not telepathic," Lily said, looking at Agent Webb with a slight frown. "Just listening. Animals talk with feelings, not words. Most grown-ups too noisy inside to hear." Her explanation was so matter-of-fact that it took a moment for the adults to process what she had said. "Lily," Agent Webb said carefully, "when you say animals talk with feelings, what do you mean?" "Like when Mama's sad, Lily feels sad too. But animals feel louder than people. Little Bear feel very, very scared and alone. So Lily sent calm feelings back." Dr. Rodriguez stared at the child. "Emotional resonance. She's describing a form of emotional resonance that we've theorized about but never observed." "Can we please focus on helping the animal?" Maya said impatiently. "If you're going to do this, let's do it safely." Dr. Rodriguez nodded and began preparing the room. She laid out sedatives and emergency equipment, then opened the door carefully. "Lily, I need you to move very slowly and keep your voice quiet," she instructed. "The cub is very weak and we don't want to startle it." Lily nodded solemnly and walked into the room like she had done this many times before. The cub immediately perked up, its eyes brightening and its breathing becoming more regular. As Lily approached the examination table, the cub made a sound that was half whimper, half purr. It was clearly trying to communicate something, and Lily seemed to understand perfectly. "Little Bear says thank you for helping," Lily translated, reaching out to gently touch the cub's paw. Little Bear was so scared when Mama disappeared. Little Bear thought Mama not coming back. The monitors showed that the cub's vital signs were improving dramatically. Its heart rate was strong and steady. Its breathing was deep and regular, and for the first time since arriving at the hospital, it seemed truly calm. "This is remarkable, Doctor," Rodriguez whispered to Agent Webb. "I've never seen such a rapid improvement in a trauma patient." But what happened next surprised everyone even more. Lily began making a new sound, something none of them had heard before. It was still melodic, but deeper and more complex, almost like she was speaking in a language that predated human speech. The cub responded with its own vocalizations, and what followed could only be described as a conversation. The sounds flowed back and forth between child and animal, each responding to the other in what was clearly a meaningful exchange. Agent Webb was recording everything on his phone, his hands shaking with excitement. This is going to change everything we know about human evolution and animal consciousness. "Lily," Maya called softly from the doorway. "What is the little bear telling you?" Lily looked up with tears in her eyes. Little Bear's mama came back to forest, but Little Bear too sick to call her. Little Bear afraid Mama think Little Bear dead. Dr. Rodriguez felt a chill run down her spine. The mother bear is still out there, looking for her cub? "Yes," Lily said simply. "Big Mama walking in circles, calling and calling. Big Mama heartbreaking." Agent Webb lowered his phone. If the mother bear is still in the area, searching for her cub, she could be a danger to hikers and campers. Or, Dr. Rodriguez said thoughtfully, we could reunite them once the cub is strong enough. "That's assuming the cub survives," Agent Webb pointed out. "Wild animals don't always recover from this level of trauma, even with medical intervention." Lily looked at him with those impossibly wise eyes. "Little Bear going to be okay. Lily, promise." As if responding to her words, the cub struggled to sit up on the examination table. Dr. Rodriguez moved quickly to support it, amazed by the sudden display of strength. "Its recovery rate is extraordinary," she murmured. "At this rate, it could be strong enough for release in just a few days." But then, something unexpected happened. The cub, now sitting upright, began making urgent sounds toward Lily. The child listened intently, her expression growing concerned. "What is it, sweetheart?" Maya asked. "Little Bear says other animals in forest are sick too," Lily translated. "Something bad in the water where animals drink." Little Bear's mama and other bear families getting sick. Dr. Rodriguez and Agent Webb exchanged alarmed glances. Environmental contamination, Agent Webb said grimly. If there's something toxic in the water supply, it could affect the entire local ecosystem. We need to contact the Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Rodriguez said. This could be a major ecological disaster. But Lily wasn't finished translating. Little Bear says the sick water comes from the big gray building where humans work. The building by the river. Agent Webb grabbed his phone. There's only one industrial facility on the river near here. Morrison Chemical Plant. Maya felt her heart sink. Morrison Chemical Plant was one of the largest employers in Willowbrook. If they were responsible for contaminating the water supply, it would affect not just the wildlife, but potentially the entire human population as well. Lily, Dr. Rodriguez said urgently, can you ask the little bear more about the sick water? How many animals are affected? Lily communicated with the cub again, their strange conversation flowing back and forth. When she looked up, her face was grave. Little Bear says many animals sick, some already gone to sleep forever. Big Mama Bear very sick too, but trying to stay strong to find Little Bear. The room fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. What had started as a simple rescue mission had uncovered what could be a major environmental crisis. Agent Webb was already making phone calls, speaking in urgent, hushed tones to various government agencies. Dr. Rodriguez was checking the cub's blood work on her computer, looking for signs of toxicity that she might have missed initially. And Maya was staring at her 18-month-old daughter, who was calmly petting a wild bear cub while discussing environmental disasters with the gravity of a seasoned scientist. Lily, Maya said softly, how long have you been able to talk to animals like this? Lily looked up at her mother with a smile that was both innocent and ancient. Always, Mama. But this first time animals need Lily to tell grown-ups important things. As if to emphasize her point, the cub made another series of sounds, and Lily's expression became even more serious. What now? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Little Bear says Big Mama Bear coming here. Big Mama followed Little Bear's scent. Big Mama will be at hospital soon. Agent Webb dropped his phone. A fully grown mother bear is heading toward a populated area while potentially suffering from toxic exposure. We need to evacuate this building immediately. But before anyone could move, they heard it. A low, mournful call echoing from the parking lot outside. The sound was different from the morning's rumbling approach. This was the cry of a mother in pain, weakened but determined. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to the window. She's here, and she looks, oh my God, she's barely standing. Through the glass, they could see the massive mother bear swaying on her feet near the hospital entrance. Her once magnificent coat was dull and patchy, and even from a distance they could see she was struggling to stay upright. The toxins, Agent Webb whispered. She's been drinking from the contaminated water source for days, maybe weeks. Lily suddenly stood up on the examination table next to the cub, her small frame silhouetted against the window. Big Mama very sick, she said, her voice filled with sadness. Big Mama used all her strength to find Little Bear. The cub on the table began making urgent, heartbroken sounds as it saw its mother's condition. Despite its own weakness, it tried to get up, desperate to reach her. We can't let her in here, Dr. Rodriguez said, but her voice lacked conviction. A sick bear is unpredictable, dangerous. No, Lily said firmly, climbing down from the table with surprising agility. Big Mama not dangerous. Big Mama just wants to say goodbye. The words hit everyone like a physical blow. Agent Webb stared at the child. Goodbye? Lily nodded solemnly. Big Mama knows she going to sleep forever soon. Just wants to touch Little Bear one more time, tell Little Bear she loves him. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. Lily, sweetheart. Mama, please, Lily said, walking toward the door. Big Mama hurting so much we have to help. Dr. Rodriguez looked at the monitors showing the cub's vital signs. Despite its own critical condition, the little bear was becoming increasingly agitated, calling out for its mother with sounds that broke everyone's heart. There has to be something we can do, Maya said desperately. Some treatment for the poisoning? Dr. Rodriguez shook her head sadly. For the level of toxicity she's showing, and given how long she's been exposed, I'm sorry. Even if we had the resources, it's too late. Agent Webb was on his phone again, speaking rapidly to someone in authority. Yes, sir. A dying mother bear outside a civilian hospital. We need a containment team, but yes, I understand the protocols, but there are special circumstances here. Lily walked to the window and pressed her small hands against the glass. Outside, the mother bear looked up and saw her. For a moment that seemed to stretch forever, the massive, dying animal and the tiny human child looked into each other's eyes. Then Lily began to sing. It wasn't the melodic humming she had done before. This was something deeper, more profound, a song that seemed to come from somewhere ancient and primal. The notes rose and fell like a lullaby, but carried with them a weight of understanding and compassion that brought tears to every adult eye in the room. The mother bear's agitation ceased. She sat down heavily on the asphalt, her massive head tilted toward the window where Lily stood. The pain in her eyes seemed to lessen, replaced by something that looked like peace. The cub on the examination table had gone completely still, listening to Lily's song with rapt attention. Its own distressed vocalizations stopped, and for the first time since arriving at the hospital, it seemed truly calm. "What is she doing?" Agent Webb whispered. Dr. Rodriguez wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I think she's helping them say goodbye." Lily's song continued, weaving through the air like a bridge between species, between mother and child, between life and whatever comes after. The mother bear began making soft sounds in response, and the cub answered from inside the hospital room. Through Lily's song, the conversation between mother and child flowed freely. Love, comfort, final instructions, promises that transcended the barrier of death itself. Maya watched her daughter facilitate this impossible moment and realized that Lily wasn't just communicating with animals. She was serving as a translator for the deepest emotions that all mothers and children share, regardless of species. The song gradually grew softer, more gentle, until it was barely audible. The mother bear laid down on the pavement, her great head resting on her paws, her eyes never leaving the window where her cub waited. "Little Bear understands now," Lily said quietly, her own voice hoarse from singing. "Big Mama says Little Bear must be strong, must grow up and have cubs of his own someday. Big Mama says she will always be watching from the sky." The cub made one final, soft sound toward the window, a sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of a child saying goodbye to its mother. The mother bear's breathing grew slower, more labored. Agent Webb was about to call for the containment team again when Lily walked to the door. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" Maya asked. "Big Mama shouldn't die alone," Lily said simply. "All mamas need someone to hold their hand when they go to sleep." Before anyone could stop her, Lily had opened the door and walked outside. Maya's heart nearly stopped as she watched her 18-month-old daughter approach the dying bear. But the mother bear lifted her massive head just enough to look at Lily approaching. There was no aggression, no fear, only gratitude. Lily sat down next to the enormous animal and placed her tiny hand on the bear's great paw, just as she had done that morning at the fair. The mother bear let out a long, shuddering breath and closed her eyes. "Thank you for loving little bear so much," Lily whispered. "Thank you for being such a good mama." Maya, Dr. Rodriguez, and Agent Webb watched from the window as the massive bear's breathing gradually slowed, then stopped altogether. But there was something peaceful about the moment, something that felt more like a natural transition than a tragic ending. Lily sat with the mother bear for several more minutes, humming softly, until she was certain the animal was truly at peace. Then she stood up and walked back inside. "Big Mama sleeping now," she announced to the room. "She not hurting anymore." The cub on the examination table had been quiet during its mother's passing, as if it understood exactly what was happening. Now it looked at Lily with eyes that seemed far older than its few months of life. "What happens to the cub now?" Maya asked Dr. Rodriguez. "Once it's fully recovered, we'll need to find a wildlife rehabilitation center," the veterinarian replied. "It's too young to survive on its own in the wild, especially with the water contamination issues." But Lily shook her head. "Little bear not going to rehabilitation place." Everyone looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Maya asked. "Little bear says he wants to stay close to Lily. Little bear says Lily is his family now." Agent Webb stepped forward. "Lily, wild animals can't live with humans as pets. It's not safe for either of you." "Not pet," Lily corrected him patiently. "Friend. Little bear will live in forest, but visit Lily sometimes. When other animals need help, little bear will bring them to Lily." Dr. Rodriguez stared at the child. "You're talking about establishing some kind of communication network with local wildlife?" Lily nodded seriously. "Grown-ups made water sick. Grown-ups need to fix water. But while grown-ups fixing, animals need someone to help them not be scared." Agent Webb was frantically taking notes again. This could revolutionize wildlife conservation efforts. If we could establish communication protocols with various species. "Not protocols," Lily interrupted. "Just kindness, just listening, just caring when someone hurts." Over the following weeks, the Morrison chemical plant was shut down pending a full environmental investigation. Agent Webb's report about Lily's abilities was classified at the highest levels, but cleanup efforts for the contaminated watershed began immediately. The bear cub, whom Lily had named Hope, recovered fully under Dr. Rodriguez's care. True to Lily's prediction, when he was released back into the cleaned forest, he didn't disappear. Instead, he remained nearby, and occasionally other injured or sick animals would appear at the edge of Willowbrook, as if they somehow knew there was a little girl who could understand their pain. Maya never fully understood how her daughter had developed these extraordinary abilities, but she learned to accept them as part of who Lily was meant to be. The quiet 18-month-old who had started that day at a simple charity fair had become something unprecedented, a bridge between the human and animal worlds. Jake and his friends never posted their video online. Instead, they became some of Lily's most devoted protectors, helping to keep her abilities secret from those who might exploit them. Jake, in particular, was transformed by what he had witnessed, eventually becoming a wildlife biologist dedicated to conservation efforts. Dr. Rodriguez established a small clinic at the edge of town, specializing in wildlife rehabilitation. She never advertised the clinic's special services, but somehow animals in need always seemed to find their way there, often accompanied by a small girl with wise eyes and a gentle voice. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sunset painted the forest in golden hues, residents of Willowbrook reported seeing a young bear sitting at the edge of the woods as if waiting for someone. Those who knew the story understood that Hope was keeping his promise to his human friend, watching over the town and its extraordinary little guardian. The charity fair incident had started as potential tragedy and transformed into something miraculous. Proof that love, compassion, and understanding could transcend any barrier, even the one between species. And in the heart of a small town called Willowbrook, a little girl continued to listen to the voices that most adults had forgotten how to hear, serving as a reminder that sometimes the most profound truths come from the smallest messengers. In the end, what Lily had done that day wasn't just save a bear cub's life. She had saved something even more precious, the connection between humans and the natural world, one gentle conversation at a time.